Hello, Justice Seekers. I'm Philip J. Watt, and this is the Conscious Society YouTube channel. My guest today really needs no introduction to many of you, but for those who don't know Max Egan, Mr. Max Egan, he is the creator of thecrowhouse.com. He's an activist, a change maker, an information agent, just generally a public speaker around the world with what's going on within the truth and freedom movements that are spread right across our planet today. So let's get straight into it. Welcome to the program, Max.
Thanks for having me on. Full pleasure to be here talking to you, brother. That we could finally make it happen with Amazon bandwidth.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle, a bit of a challenge, but we've got there, and we'll see how it unfolds with the audio as we go along. But look, we've got heaps to talk about. I really want this to be a bit of a snapshot about what's going on in the world and in the self, as well as given the recent controversies around, a couple of big names and the controversy surrounding them, about where we sort of go from here as the truth and freedom movements, because really we are fragmented. The alternative media is fragmented. The divide and conquer strategy is in top gear. The truth-seeking community, the justice-seeking community really hasn't got any sort of unification or collective sort of approach to dealing with what's going on. So we'll finalise the chat with that. But when you first started out as an activist, I think it was around 7 or 8 years ago from memory, you began talking around the nature of the self, the nature of the energetic and spiritual self, and how that relates and interacts with the so-called objective world. So I thought we'd go back to your roots, Max, and start with that. So the basic question is, how would you describe the subjective experience that we have as an individual human, this snapshot of consciousness at the start of the 21st century?
Well, it's an energetic universe, it's an electrical universe, and we're electrical beings. And really, the big problem that we're facing in the world today is self. We've lost connection of what we are, what our connection to everything else is. And it's really not helping things, we're so eager to give our power away, so willing to give our power away. And when we try to find a way out of this mess, we look for leaders, all this sort of stuff. We don't believe that we have any power ourselves. We've really forgot what we are as a species. That's the big problem that we face. That's something that I really tried to cover a lot on the early shows, like the spiritual understandings that people need to be able to deal with reality. I mean, there's a lot of spiritual teachings there, a lot of great stuff, which is a lot of good stuff in there, but it tends to lead people down into this bubble of narcissism where they don't apply it to the world around them, And, my whole concept I've been trying to people is that there's only really one self, and you're never going to heal the self by ignoring the plight of the others. Too much of the work we do, the spiritual work, it's all about me, self, and it's narcissistic, But like I said, you're not gonna heal the self unless you can improve the plight of others and see others being as valuable as yourself. But you've got to see that value that you have as well, is what we've lost. We look for rulers, we look for leaders, and we believe the government has to look after them. We're taught that we're just little people who should leave the workings of the system to people who know better. And we're just taught to give our power away. The whole education system, the whole social system, this is what it's all about. It's about removing us from our power. So a lot of my early shows are about trying to help people reconnect with that, just rediscover themselves, because that is a real problem, is the loss of self that we have. Why do we believe that we need rulers? Why do we believe that there is such a thing as a legitimate slave or a legitimate ruler? Because there really isn't. And until we can get back to that frame of mind, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. And it is the whole movement is fragmented. There's so much infighting. There's so many people with agendas now. There's a lot of people who sort of the next guru. A lot of people who are putting their 2 cents and just mudding the waters. There's no real regard for truth or unity anymore. There's so much vision, so much distrust in the movement. And it's gotten really, in the last probably 18 months to 2 years, it's gotten very, very fragmented. But in a way, it's kind of good, because it's clearing out the wheat from the chaff. You know, things are revealing themselves. Things start to bubble to the surface now, and people are revealing themselves, revealing their true colours. And you know, it's been good in some ways. I mean, we need a clearing out of the trash. We need a clearing out of the you know, the false gurus and the false prophets out there. And people have to understand that there are leaders. There's no one's going to step up and lead them to safety. We need people to lead themselves to safety, but they're only going to do that if they know what power they have and rediscover themselves. So, you know, that's what, and with everything that I've done, ultimately with the shows I've done so many hundreds of shows now, but ultimately it's all really been the same show. It's really been the same message all the way through. The fact is that you have power, everybody has power to affect change. You know, every problem that we face, every issue that we have, whether it's a good issue or a bad issue, it all comes from an idea that somebody had ultimately. And we all have the ability to have these ideas and to project them out there and to bring about change if we can just realize that we all have value. So that's been the message all the way, right from the beginning. Yeah. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is all linked. As you mentioned, it all is one show. My personal journey was waking up around the spiritual self first and foremost. From a young kid, I noticed the connection going on and was sort of, hang on, this might be all in my own fucking head. I might be a bit crazy here. So I went on a journey of rationalization and rationalizing how I could be experiencing this deep inner connection with the world around me. And that led to some really deep, badass philosophical sort of introspection and sort of empowerment through that process. And then I started to wake up to what was going on in the outside world as well. And without those real fundamental core philosophies that helped me to find peace and acceptance throughout all that process, it would have been a lot more difficult. And that's what a lot of people do. They're waking up. I basically say that we don't wake up. We only become conscious of, you know, certain concepts, understandings, realities. I think this is more of a journey of waking up, not a destination. I really wish this would be a commonly accepted theme throughout the truth-seeking community, because then dogma and bigotry and other closed-mindedness doesn't occur as easy. But when you talked about power and not being sort of, you know, expecting a lead, wanting a leader or wanting a guru, and a long time ago it was very simple for me to sort of work out that power over others wasn't real power. Self-empowerment and becoming connected with myself and connected with my various layers of myself, including what's going on the outside, was highly, highly important. And represented, you know, what true power actually is. You also mentioned about the guru, and I thought I've taken a few notes as we go along, because I love discussing these sorts of things. For a long time now, I've also said, you know, never let your inner child die, and never stop your inner guru from being born. And I think we all should be our own guru, our own leader. We should connect with that. That's the process of connecting with the self, empowering the self, going through the journey of enlightenment and understanding what it means to be human right now. But I have noticed that there is so much disagreement and closed-mindedness about where we are. And if that disagreement occurs, which is absolutely fine, like we should be able to disagree about what's going on for ourselves and on the outside world. But that doesn't mean that we should not unify and become, a part of that same team. So, I mean, be my guest.
Well, yeah, people expect everyone to have all the answers straight away. They don't realize that it's about the journey. Like you say, it's about the journey. The journey is the goal. You know, all is enlightenment, but there's no short path. The journey is to enlightenment. Enlightenment, what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is the carrying away of the veil. It's the shedding of light on the dark, you know, and it's the breaking down of everything you believe to be real. It's a very destructive process. So, and, you know, people unfortunately through their lives, and they think it's about other things. They never really have time for spiritual pursuits. They never really have time to discover themselves. They think they are their possessions. They think that they are their job. They are what they've managed to accumulate. They are their social standing. But that's not them. That's just a myth. It's just an idea. So they don't really have time to discover themselves, you know. And then when people do wake up to the fact of being played, the fact that they've spent their life indulging all this mess activity, which has just been basically, you know, towards the goal of collecting an paper to pay to be alive in a comfortable manner and not have to worry about it. I mean, why do you even have to pay to be alive? People don't even question that. Why do I have to pay to be here? I was born into the world. Why do I have to pay just to be alive? What's that about? You know, so they go through their lives and they think, well, this is just the way it is. We just have to do this. So it's all about the accumulation of stuff. But really, they miss out on their lives, just all this baggage that ties them down. You know, you don't really own your stuff because you're only for a while. It's just stuff that you're sharing space with. When you really believe that you own all this stuff, it actually owns you. Now you're tied to that spot looking after all your stuff. So the stuff, you don't own the stuff. And there's you. And we judge ourselves by all this stuff. So we don't have time for these spiritual pursuits. And like you say, with the New Age movement, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Of course there is. They put a lot of good understandings that you need in there. But then it channels you into this little ball action and narcissism, so you don't really pay attention to the world. You don't do anything about it. You give your power away very readily. That's the problem we've got. And with this alternate media, like I said, there's too many people that expect everybody else to have all the answers, and if you disagree with anything that I say, you must, you know, there's all of this distrust in there now. It's about the journey, it's about the path, and we need to basically understand that we're not going to get all the details right. We're going to have all different opinions on certain details about certain events or whatever, but we need to agree on the main focus, which is freedom. We need to realize that we are in a slavery system. We're being run very cruel, megalomaniacal people who are doing very bad things, conducting laws and running this financial slavery system. We need to all agree on that and formulate what the workable plan is to get ourselves out of this mess. And I believe this has to start grassroots action on the ground in local communities, people simply beginning to question the authority that the politicians claim they have over the people. Start asking these people what they believe they can do to things that they do and laws are valid when their laws in the community. And asking these questions in front of the people around you and empower them into wanting to ask these questions as well. Simply the act of asking this question is a very empowering thing. You know, if a politician tells you to do something and you simply say why, what is this law for? Who does this serve? How is it valid? You know, this is a very empowering thing to do, and it inspires people around you to want to ask these questions as well. You know, like that's the whole thing. It's the loss of self and the people's belief that they don't have any power, that they can go on these spiritual journeys and spiritual understandings, but then not apply the world. They can sit there and meditate for the rest of their life, and suddenly everything's going to get better. There's no way. You've got to prepare to face the shadow and apply your spiritual understandings to the shadows. That's the only way you're going to heal it. You know, and that's what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is it's a bringing forth of light to the shadow. You've got to be prepared to face the dark, and you've got to be prepared to step out of the fear that most people have, the fear of really themselves and believing that they have any power to make change. You know, all these figures of authority, they're just guys in suits. They're not anybody special. And most of the time, they're people that we actually employ to manage infrastructure for us. And all they do is write legislation, which curtails our ability to be all that we can be. It's our creative potential and forces us to walk between the lines and our lives as slaves our entire life. I mean, it's a joke. So people have got to realize it and realize how they're played and realize that there is a way out. It's in them. They have to get involved themselves, not find some leader and think that that's going to answer the safety. They're going to get the newsletter to say the world's changed. If they're not prepared to apply themselves to the community, then they're never going to get anywhere. People have to do that, and they've got to understand that there are people around who feel the same as they do. And if they were to simply stand up and be an inspiration to the people around them, you find a lot of people are going to stand with them to want to do the same thing. You know, they're just afraid to do that, Phil, is the problem. That people are just too afraid to really exercise their power stand up and question authority, question the validity of these rules these politicians are putting in place, and really where your place in the food chain is. You know, we created government, man created government, government created politicians, and politics all this legal system. We're right at the top of the food chain. So once we realise that, we can change things. You know, we've got to stop doing these people and realise that they are supposed to be doing what we tell us, what we tell them. I mean, they're supposed to be managing things for us. We have, you know, good, functional, vibrant societies, and we're free to be all that we can be. And they're doing everything they can to limit that potential at the moment. So we've got to turn the pyramid back by its supposed to be.
Yeah, it's simple indoctrination. I mean, we look back to some of the tribal cultures, and they had some pretty good bloody systems in place, and equal systems, in systems of care for the neighbours that they've never even met, let alone the environment and each other. But when we look at what we've got today, it's our so-called civilized society really just isn't that civilized. But we're just young. We're young in culture. We're young in mind. I mean, most people are highly indoctrinated into the status quo, and they're probably good people who really want to, do the best for themselves and their family and their community, their human family. But they don't realise what they're a part of, what they're doing. And so this process is really an emancipation process, a freedom process that's been a long time in the making. So as soon as we start thinking about, I mean, it's really simple. You look back at some of the old laws and you go, well, they were absolutely ridiculous. And then you look, but no one's really, or very few people are looking at the ones today and thinking, well, does that equate to ethics? Are some of these laws absolutely ridiculous too? And will we look back on these in the future and just go, what the hell were we thinking? Like it really is about that consciousness expansion process that's happening collectively and individually, and looking, well, what is it? What are we in reality exposed to today? What is the system? I mean, you have a look at the education. Look at the results. Kids go into the world and they're, highly, uneducated in life skills and, emotional self-regulation and questioning how we can build something better for our society. You have a look at the medical system, completely monopolised, completely toxin dense. Food, toxin dense. The banking, completely monopolised. Like the whole sovereign public utility we call banking and money has been literally hijacked and stolen. Like, these are real simple things that we can all sort of recognise if we do the right research. But then we've got media, and they all act really, like they know what they're talking about. You watch things like The Project on Channel 10 here in Australia, and they sound like they know what they're talking about, but they've got no idea. They're completely indoctrinated into the system. They don't know how to question the status quo. They don't even realise it is a status quo. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, I do agree with you there, Max. We do need to start looking and sort of mobilising in a local community sense. But we need to unify the alternative mindsets and the alternative media, not under a leader, but under some simple bloody key agreements and values. I'm actually going to embed this interview within an article where I've put forward a few suggestions around that. But what would you suggest? What would you suggest that we could unify on to start really showing solidarity and moving forward in a genuine, actual, effective way?
Well, as I keep saying, it's got to be based in respect. To start with, we've got to respect that people are going to be different to us. We've got to respect each other's opinions and not get caught up in details all the time. Realize that we don't know the details. We can speculate all we want. We don't know the details of anything, and we don't need a common leader or a common movement, but we do need a common focal point. And we've got to decide what that focal point is. And of course, that focal point should be freedom. It should be wishing some form of accountability for the politicians and the corruption that exists within the system, realizing what the system is. And I think we can all agree that we're being run by a corporate system it's a whole corporate empire. Everything about this system is corporate. And the problem is that the economic model, the corporate has been placed above the needs of the people. We are now doing everything to balance the books and make sure the corporate model is functioning perfectly, because we're so concerned with our economies, because we think we need a functioning economy to have a functioning country. We don't. We need a functioning population to have a functioning country. And if the population is suffering in order to serve the economy, then things are backwards. What's the economy about? What is all the debt that we owe to? Who do we owe all this money to? Well, it's to the bankers who lend all this money to the governments privately. The whole thing's a scam. And in order to support this economic system, we're depleting every single resource this earth has to offer. We're destroying all of our environments in order to balance the books. We just got to look at it for what it is. We've got to put people back at the top of the equation, put people back at the top of the food chain. And again, this isn't going to come from grassroots action on the ground and in local communities. People have to start questioning local councils and doing stuff there. We are so concerned with leaders all the time, like whatever the Prime Minister's doing or the state Premier's doing, when really what affects us on the ground in our community is what local councils are doing. And local councils, they all get their objectives in Australia. They all get their objectives from the Municipality Association, which gets all of its objectives straight from the United Nations under Agenda 21. So that's how they're undermining Australia, through the mechanism of the local councils. And that's where we can make a difference, by questioning the authority of our local councils and questioning what these people are doing. Councils are supposed to be people that we elect as our representatives to liaise with the government for us and basically lobby government to give us the things we need for our community. But now they've set themselves up as the local authority, the local rulers who now dictate what we as a community can do. This is not what a council is supposed to be. You think even the word council, we elect a council to hold council. This is supposed to be a group of respected elders who we have as our representatives to talk to the big wigs at the top so they can ask for the money we need to have things that we want in our community. We're not getting any of that. It's changed. So we have to start questioning this authority on the ground in all of our local communities and realize what we're dealing with here. But that's not going to happen unless we can respect each other. And that's not going to happen until we can stop arguing over details that we really don't know, which are all based on speculation. And this is what I keep saying to people, is when you're reading all these articles in the independent media, what you're looking at is someone's perspective based on the information they've looked at. It may be right, it may not be. You don't know. You've got to consider it, but don't believe it. Consider it as possible and see what you can find, and research yourself to see what you can correlate to see if it's true. But stop getting bogged down by details, and stop with all the infighting that if you don't agree with everything I say, you're an agent, or you're an agent of the system or whatever, an unwilling agent of the system simply because you're disagreeing. I mean, you've got to understand that people are going to have different ideas, and we don't know what the details, so many issues, we really don't. What we can do is speculate. So we've got to find what the common focal point is, the common focus. And that common focus is establishing freedom, establishing accountability for the criminals and the politicians within the system, realizing that it is corrupt because it's not applied evenly. The legal system isn't applied evenly. It's not applied to the politicians. If the legal system was applied evenly, all of these politicians in Australia would be in jail now under their own law, because they're all guilty of treason, they're all supporting international war crimes, they're all supporting human rights violations, human rights abuses, all sorts of stuff. So I mean, look at the medical system. The medical system itself is a human rights abuse. The outlawing of cannabis is a human rights abuse. The treatment of the Aboriginal people is a human rights abuse. The refugee camps are a human rights abuse. This taxation system and this money system itself is a human rights abuse. I mean, really, let's really call this out and look at it for what it is. The politicians are not serving us. They're not doing anything for the country. They're destroying the country in order to support the economy. So what is the purpose of this economy? Why are we in so much debt? Who do we owe it to? What's it all about? Let's just realize that the world is a mess. The politicians have created it to be that way. So let's just fix it. Let's just stand up. And I'd like to see a global strike, actually. I'd like to see the whole place just down tools and say we've had enough. Cancel all debt, and let's bring it all back to zero and start again with an honest monetary system, not based on fiat currency. Let's do that right now. No, it isn't going to take a year to roll it back or a week to roll it back, because we've all gone on strike today. They're not going back to work until tomorrow when it's all changed. I mean, if we really grew a pair and stood up and said, look, we're just not going to do this anymore, we can change. But that's not going to happen, because as soon as you stand up and do that, the guy next door will start arguing you and shouting you down, because he likes to see you squashed down, because it makes him feel better about his life, because he's been so suppressed all his life, and now he can only get energy from watching the neighbour be squashed. So this is the way it works, this whole energy exchange we've got going on. Everyone's disconnected from source, disconnected from themselves. And people, unfortunately, like to hack down the tall poppy next door. That's just the Australian way, unfortunately, and that in many other countries as well. But if we can get rid of all this programming and realise that, hey, we're all in this together and we're all facing the same problems and the same difficulties, and we all want a better world, and we could have one if we could just respect each other for just a day, Eve. Try it out, see if it works. We might find that we like it. I think that, we'd get somewhere if we can learn to do that. But it's got to start in respect. If we haven't that, then we're not going to get anywhere. And you're going to need certain leaders, in as much as you need people in your community to inspire your local community, like with what you're doing with your market gardens and things you're doing, and just standing up, being a strong, empowered person. This inspires other people to want to be strong and empowered and to want to emulate that, and that's a good thing. So we can all be a shining light in our community and empower people around them and empower people around us to remember who and what they are, and have the strength and the lack of fear to want to stand up and be all that they can be, and to have their voice heard, and to ask these questions, and to realize that they don't have any rulers that are controlling their actions. They don't need rulers. They need to be able to be free to create and cooperate. And we're not getting that. We don't need to be competitive the way we are. This whole system is designed to do that. The money system creates scarcity, so we live in complete states of competition all the time, when it should be states of cooperation. But we can change it. We can change it if we just start doing it. Start doing the right thing in all that you do. Instead of what's right for you, just do what's right. And don't do it always for profit. Do it to help people. It's good. It's good to give, and it's to help people. If you find that you do that, it'll come back to you. People will want to help you. It just works. People, they all need a helping hand to some degree. And even with the arguing, the infighting, and everything in the alternate media, I mean, people should put down their agendas instead and realise that we don't know what all the details are. We need to have a common focal point. Everybody isn't your enemy. Just because they disagree with you doesn't mean they're your enemy. We're all looking for the right way out of this. And as soon as we learn to respect each other, we might get somewhere. I firmly believe we could change the world in a day if people just put down all this stuff and turned to call this system out and said, hey, we're not going to do it anymore. It'd have nowhere to go. If we could just put down all that stuff and do that, make a huge difference. So I'm hoping we'll see that day come one day soon.
We could, but the masses are indoctrinated. Like, I've got a mate who just got on the council, and he's a good guy. I know he'll do the best he can with the circumstances he's got. There's many ways to infiltrate, and to change the system. We can infiltrate it. We can build on the outside. I don't think there is any one right way. I think it is. I've heard you say many times before, people are just people. And these people, the politicians, bureaucrats, a lot of them, they just don't understand what they're doing. A lot of them don't understand that they're breaking international law. A lot of them just don't understand what's going on in, for example, in Israel and Palestine. They just don't get it. Many do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying those at the tippity tip top, of the power pyramid, they're not. They don't have some clue about what's going on. But a lot don't. And I want to see the education process, which, I mean, I would love to see a global strike, but, people will go, what the hell, what he's doing? They just don't understand that there's a problem. I think it's all, pretty good. We're getting there, but they just don't understand how serious this control matrix is. But once you have become aware, you can't forget it. And that's where the alternative media and the alternative sort of movements should be unifying to build a public dialogue, a basic discussion based on some basic values to I guess compare or relate to the actions of governments, of corporations, of the oligarchs, and of the system itself. And so that's, I think that's the way that we need to go forward is, as you said, no leaders. I mean, you need people, as you said, standing up on the rest of it, but actually just having a simple set of core values and maybe some system focal points that we should all rally around and then debate in the context of what the fuck is going on in the world. So,
well, yeah, the problem is that people get focused on their symptom. You know, they don't realise that every issue that we face is a symptom of systemic corruption, but they always think that their little symptom is the one focal point. If we can wake people up to this symptom, it's going to fix things. But that's really not what it is. The whole thing is how we've given our power away. You know, we believe that we have rulers, and we believe we have to destroy our environment because these people write it on paper that we have to do so. I mean, it's absurd, you know. So, and the problem with the alternative against the infighting and the big bogged down in details, you know.
All right, so we lost connection there for a second, Max, but let's get straight back into it, mate. We were talking about unifying the sort of truth and freedom movements.
Yeah, the problem is that we're bogged down in details all the time, you know. So it's got to be based in respect. You know, we've got to be realizing that we don't know all the details, and we've got a common goal here, which is freedom. And you know, we've got an opportunity for that, and we've got an opportunity to be able to hold these politicians accountable for their actions, or at least expose to the masses the fact that the legal system's corrupt because it's not applied evenly. So that's why we shouldn't be focusing on symptoms all the time and on details. You know, we need to really broaden our perspective and realise that we're all on the same team here. We're all ultimately heading for the same point. Even a lot of the politicians that work within the system probably want freedom as well. A lot of these people don't really realise what they're involved in. I mean, a lot of people actually join politics because they want a difference. You'll find that the good ones don't ever get to positions of power, but you know, there are people who are in there who really would like to see some change, but they get into the system, they get caught up in all that mess, and it's all convoluted. They've got to play by all these rules, so they get caught up in red tape. They never get anywhere. The whole system is completely corrupt and up. So you can't really use the system against itself in that way. You can't really infiltrate it and try to change it from within. I mean, maybe you could to some degree, but I don't really think that there's going to be much success there. It's got to come from the people themselves calling it out. And that's only going to happen from respect. So the independent media really needs to stop bogging itself down in details and stop all the accusations against each other, and realize we've got a common focal point, and we do have an opportunity for freedom. And this is why I do use Palestine so much, because it does provide a legal key. Because it's, you know, the mere existence of Gaza Strip is an international war crime under Article 30 of the Geneva Convention, and it's being supported by hundreds and possibly even thousands of politicians all around the world, which gives us an opportunity to expose to the sleeping masses that the legal system isn't being applied evenly. So therefore, there really is no law on this earth. You know, if you're going to be subject to the whim of politicians, you're going to have police coming around and fining you and doing all these sorts of things that they do to you because you haven't paid your council rates or whatever, and yet you've got the same councillors that are supporting an international war crime which makes them guilty under their own law. So how is the legislation they're writing and inflicting upon you valid? You know, so you can use Palestine to just demonstrate that to people, that the whole system is corrupt. It's systemically corrupt. It's not applied even. And the only people who are able to fix that is us. But we have to stop complying with it, you know. I mean, we're the ones who hold it up. We're the ones who go fight the wars. We're the ones who build all the bombs and do all the things the politicians tell us to do. The system wouldn't function at all if we didn't support it. So we have to stop supporting it. You know, we don't do that because neighbours don't respect each other. You know, we're too busy fighting amongst ourselves and fighting with the people next door and the people down the road because they've got a bigger front door than us or whatever. You know, all these programs that we're running, these ways that we judge each other when we really shouldn't. And, you know, it's got to come from respect, Phil. It really does. I think that's the only place it's going to come from. And if independent media can't develop this respect and stop all the accusations against each other and develop some sort of a common focal point, then what is? I mean, in the age of information that we've got now, because every man and his dog can open a website and put their opinion up there, no matter how valid it is or how accurate it is, the information flow has been so muddied now that nobody really knows what's going on. So we've got to step back and, like I said, broaden our perspective and realize we don't know the details, and we've got to stop getting bogged in details and realize that we have an opportunity for freedom here if we can just respect each other for a little while and stand up together and call it and say, hey, we're just not going to do this anymore. That's when we're going to see some real change. We're going to do it. We can all do it in our own local communities right now, simply connecting with the people around us. I've been saying this to people on air for the last 9 years. That's where it has to start. And when we see people doing that, we'll see a difference. We'll see change start to happen. And I've seen it in local communities. I've seen it in small villages where people know everybody else. They simply stand up and say, hey, no, we're not going to do it. And the local council doesn't have anything they can do about it. So that's just the way it goes. People have to grow a set and realize that there are no rulers, there are no leaders, that we're all in this together, and that we can't continue down the direction we're going. We can't keep supporting this economic model at the expense of human life and all other life and the environment and everything, just to balance the books. It doesn't make sense. We've got to put humanity back at the top of the equation and start managing things a little bit more properly and put life as the main focal point rather than the economy, I think.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people who understand this mess, but there are a lot of disagreements as well. Everyone's got their own idea about how to move forward. I mean, I write a lot around, some quite controversial topics, including, one of the major themes, one of the major concepts that I try and help people understand is that the sense of self, individual sense of self, is one layer of truth. It might be within a construct called the collective self or the interconnected reality. But I don't want to kill my sense of self. I want to enjoy my humanity and use that for my own growth and the growth around me. And so, but whenever anybody hears the word ego, which at its core just means sense of self, the I, the feelness, whatever, how you want to individualize and connect with the individual self. They think it's been corrupted to think it to be turned into a bad negative term, but it's not. Ego is just simply the sense of self. And I think we should be utilizing that for the good. But, as soon as I talk about that or write about that, people shut down and they unfriend me or whatever, unsubscribe, all the rest of it. It doesn't really matter. It's important to talk about. But that's okay if people disagree with me on that. I really don't give a fuck. That was really important for me. I put that information out there for others if they can, if they relate to it. If they resonate, that's great. If not, that's great too. It's fine. Another thing I disagree with is I'm an anarchist at heart. I don't think we should have rulers. But I don't think we should have zero government, at least in the transitional term. I think we should utilise this organisational management system and to move into that freedom, that space of freedom. We should occupy, we should infiltrate, we should ethically take control, the people take control of this system so that we can use it to apply the golden rule. But if you don't agree with me, that's fucking fine. I don't care. Like, seriously, if you think that we should just completely have zero government, that's absolutely fine. We've still got the same goal of, as you said, Max, freedom. We're all real anarchists. Surely none of us want rulers. So there's a really good unification principle right there. But it doesn't matter if we disagree about these things, because we don't, I love how you said, we don't have the details. We don't 100% know how we're going to transition in the future. I personally like a moneyless society, the concept of an abundance-based economy, where we get rid of money altogether because it's a tool of enslavement, it's a tool of scarcity, and we look into automation and tapping into our passion and creativity and all the rest of it, and just have an abundance of everything for everybody, have a bit more equality. Now, that's unrealistic in the short term. I accept that. I like that idea. I love Peter Joseph, smart dude. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily right. That's what I would believe at the moment. But if you disagree with that, that's fine. But again, we need to, we're right on the same team here, Max, excuse the pun, because we do need to have some core bloody values and system focal points that we need to focus on. So let me just quickly read out a quick list of values that I wrote down. And tell me if you think that we can all sort of agree to this. We value love over hate. We value truth over lies. We value freedom over enslavement. We value happiness over suffering. We value honour over disrespect. We value cooperation over competition. We value family and community over money. We value health over business. We value peace over war. And we value justice over injustice. What do you reckon of that? Is that something we might be able to bloody merge or unify on?
I mean, they're all good core values, absolutely, you know. And like you say, nobody really knows what the future is, and nobody really knows, you know, how we're going to get there. But we have to be able to agree on certain core issues, you know. And the problem is that we're not doing that. I mean, there's got to be better ways of doing things. I mean, if you're gonna get into government at all, you should get into government and into government with the idea of reducing it to the point of non-existence. I mean, with the societies we've got now, of course, you need some sort of managerial system because people simply aren't educated enough to be analysts. People simply aren't responsible enough to know how to govern themselves. If you simply remove government now, you create a power vacuum, and there'd be crime gangs or whatever. But, you know, the infrastructure that we've got now, it doesn't really need government to function. I mean, all government does is put in regulations and rules and control it so they can skim the cream off the top. That's all they do. They've just positioned themselves into this position. It's just a group of businessmen, really, who put themselves in a position where they're able to skim the cream off the top of society. That's all it is. There's been periods when the government's gone down, you know, like a couple of years ago, there was no government in the United States for a month or something, and the world didn't fall apart. The country didn't fall apart. We've had hung parliaments in Australia, and the government didn't fall apart. The country didn't fall apart. We don't actually need government there. We need people there to manage infrastructure for us responsibly. You know, but we could have a global strike, or at least a national strike, and we could say, hey, look, we're not going to do this anymore. We've identified the fact that all of you politicians that are milking all of this wealth from us are all provable war criminals under your own legislation. So we want some accountability, and we're just going to stop. We're just not going to do this anymore until we get some accountability. We'll put some honest people in there, and we'll reduce government to the point that we don't really need it anymore because we can't go on with what we've got. We need some sort of a transitional period. But it's not going to happen until mankind makes a stand. You know, we can't think we can vote people in and vote people out. We need to basically down tools, have a strike and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're not fighting wars, we're not building your weapons, we're not building your bombs, we're not taking your vaccines, we're not eating your GM food, we're not interested in the legislation you're putting in place because it doesn't serve the people. We've had enough. We've realised what you're doing. You're a bunch of criminals who are just running the world into the ground, and we're not going to do it anymore. Now, we could put any garden variety pickpocket in there to run the country better than the politicians that are in there at the moment. So, you know, until we call it, it's not going to go anywhere. But whatever we do, we can't just pull the system down and have revolution and chaos. That won't work at all. We need some sort of government system there to lead us back to a point where we don't need it. But that's going to take at least one generation. You've got to educate an entire generation of people on how to think properly and how to have their life skills back, because none of the kids that are coming out through school know how to do anything except function in the business world and work a smartphone properly. You know, they know how to do all this digital stuff and how to create lots of money, how to be good with Bitcoin or how to do all this sort of stuff, but they don't know how to go and dig the garden and grow some carrots. They don't know how to go and look after their family or go fishing or just do something. They don't know how to participate in the real world. They think it's all exists in this little screen in front of them. So, you know, it's going to take at least one generation to re-educate humanity back into being human beings, because they've lost that. The education system doesn't teach you that bit anymore. They just teach you how to be a functional little cog in the big machine and hope that you burn out by the time you're 30 so they can throw you on the trash heap. You know, so we've got to do that. We've got to be sensible about it. There's no way to bring this system down right now, crashing down, and think we can all just be and this can all be free tomorrow. That's completely unrealistic. There's got to be a transitional period because there has to be re-education of people. Because there's kids coming out now that they don't know. They don't know. They couldn't survive. You couldn't drop any of these people, take a supermarket away from them, drop them into anywhere in the world and see if they'd survive. They wouldn't. They wouldn't know what to do without the nanny state to look after them. So, it's going to take a little while to educate people.
That's a big sort of catalyst for waking, for people to start thinking a little bit more critically about what's going on, isn't it? With the education. So you just sort of look back to what you went through school and you're like, well, what is the most valuable information that I connect with now for my own health and, my connection with the world around me? And the majority by far, reading, writing, mathematics, a bit of other English stuff and geography or whatever, that's all great. But the majority of that education curriculum is just useless, especially because winners write history and all the rest of it as well. But yeah, so it is a very scary situation at the moment with everybody so hopelessly dependent on this system, on this control matrix. Because if there was an issue, for example, many people in the alternative media are freaking out about the implosion or the impending collapse of the fiat system, all the rest of it. And if that did happen, or if the solar flare took out electricity or whatever, that would be the death and destruction, the suffering of, the majority of people on this planet. So there is a massive amount of life skills and other skills and knowledge that we've lost. And we are now just, dependent on being the trucks moving and getting us the food and all the rest of it. I recently did a presentation at the Paradigm Shift Summit up on the Gold Coast. And in it I said, you want to be a true rebel, grow your own food. Because not only are you supplying yourself being a little bit more self-sustainable, but you're providing yourself some healthy bloody food options and nutrition as well. So there are things that we can do on an individual level in our own lives to sort of rebel against to undermine this control system. But there's also some things that we can do collectively as well. It's a fantastic discussion, Max. So I really, it's been bugging me for a long time why all the alternative media, independent media, and all these different truth seekers, why we're so fragmented. And I'm just trying to figure out how we can sort of help to, contribute to that merging approach, because it's absolutely bloody necessary given the critical time we're in.
It's very difficult, Phil. I've tried it. I've gone and I've met as many major voices from the independent media as I can. I've gone out of my way to try to connect with as many people as I can. All I've found that I've got from it is accusations from other members of the independent media that, oh, look, he's associating with this guy, he's associating with this guy, this guy's disinformation. And they don't know. They don't know any of these people personally. It's hard to know, but I've just gone and I've tried to meet as many people as I can and try to unite them and try to unite their audiences so that the audiences of the different fan bases of the people can see that actually, hey, we're all talking to each other. There's no reason for you guys to be arguing. We're all working on the same team, going for the same cause. But it's gotten me nowhere. I've tried very much to do this over the last 6 years. I've traveled as much as I can to meet as many people as I can to try to create some sort of a community and create some sort of a common focus. But I find that virtually everyone has an agenda. So it's got to come down to the people. It really does. And people have to not be so prepared to follow other people and think that it's this guy who's got the answer for me, because this guy's just got a perspective, same as me. Hey, don't believe me. I'm just giving you my perspective. Am I right? I don't know. I hope so, but I don't know. I'm open to change. I'm open to discovering new things, and I'm open to changing my ideas and changing my opinions, and everybody should. That's what it's about. But I've tried, Phil. I've tried to unite everybody, and I've realized it's got to come down to the people. It's got to come down to grassroots action. People have to stand up for themselves and start questioning authority, do it in the right way. You don't have to get angry or get abusive or anything like that. You can ask some really, really embarrassing questions to these politicians and have them expose themselves in front of your entire community. And just doing that is an incredibly empowering thing to do. It plants that little seed of dissent in people's minds. It plants that little desire for them to question things as well. You know, where they go, wow, listen to what Phil said to that guy at that meeting, and he couldn't answer it. And then they start talking about it around the kitchen table and down the pub, and they start telling their friends. And other people start asking these questions to the politicians in their area. And before you know it, all these people are on the back foot. And just by doing that, he feels powerful. They feel that they have a value. They feel that they can make a difference and they can make a change. They can do things, like you say, by putting in a community garden. Just grow all your own food. Grow as much of it as you can. You know, the price of food, it's all GM and it's all bad for you anyway. So just grow your own. If they tell you can't, ask them why. Why they would presume to put in a law that says you can't grow food. I mean, how can they do that? That's not law. That's not just. That's not valuable. That doesn't serve anybody, regardless of what you say. You know, and it's all these laws, they're not law anyway. Any law that's put in place by any politician that says you can't grow a garden somewhere, how is that law? How is that law? You can even turn that back on themselves, really, if you're smart about it. You can say, well, hang on, you base all of your entire legal system on the Bible, don't you? It's all ecclesiastic. I've got to swear on the Bible when I go to your court. Well, you can't cherry pick. If you're going to base your legal system on the Bible, then it's got to be on the whole Bible. And it says on page 2 of the Bible that God created man and gave man dominion over the earth and gave to man every seed-bearing plant. So how are you telling me I cannot grow food? If you're doing so, you're claiming that you're basing your legal system on the Bible, yet you can circumvent the Bible to create the legislation. So how does your legal system even work? How's it there? I'm not following you. How does this work? So you can turn things back around on themselves. Yeah, they've got no right to do half of the stuff they do. The only reason to get away with it is because we do not question it. We just say, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. When the police officer comes around and threatens to put us in a cage if we don't walk between laws, we do what we're told rather than asking questions. We should ask these questions and have these people expose themselves as being the corrupt criminals that they are in front of the entire community. And that's a really good way to go. You don't have to accuse them of anything. You just got to ask them, is it not true that this is the case? So how on earth are you able to do what you do? Can you please show cause why you shouldn't be held in abusive office for taking that liberty that you simply don't have? And, you know, and this is a very, very dangerous question to ask a politician. You'd be surprised at the change you can make in your community by just asking those questions, you know. So I'd like to see a lot more of that, you know.
Yeah, well, me too. I think the recent election in Australia really showed how people are moving away from the status quo, the two-party tyranny, the duopoly, the Labor left-right illusion of choice that works the same corporatocracy, same bankers, gangsters, in media, you know, oligarchs, all the rest of it. It's one big corporate structure that controls their political domain. But there are a lot of, you know, new sort of fresh energy people coming through the ranks. As I said, Fred got into the council. The politician, there are people who are wanting to become independent senators and all the rest of it. And then there's also within the police and military. I know very much over in America, there's a huge portion of the police and military who are very aware of the control system, and they're doing their own organisation behind the scenes as well. It does feel like it is coming to a bit of a crescendo because there is this fiat issue. There is the increasing tensions. So I don't know if this Russia, China, US thing is just a smokescreen, and they're all working behind the scenes to implement the New World Order or not. If Putin really is a bit of a good counterbalance to what's going on, that's still undecided for myself. But I guess time will tell. We'll see what's going on as it unfolds. But I think it is vitally important for everybody right now to have some sort of, preparation approach to the challenges that we are potentially going to face. I think it's really important that we look after ourselves better. If you got kids, make sure that you're doing your own homeschooling to at least to a certain extent. Don't rely on education for that. Yeah, just get access to good quality food, connect with people in your community, join the your sort of local movements and groups and all the rest of it, and start understanding what really is happening locally for yourself, and also regionally and nationally as well. And just basically, I love that saying that you say, Max, is step into your power, or step into your strength. I think it's really important that we do that, because I've just seen so much hypocrisy and so much contradiction within the New Age movements and truth movements and whatnot. People pretend they're something they're not, and it's great to be an important voice in how we move forward, but we need to be backing that voice up, whether depending on what we share and how we communicate with those around us. We need to back that up with truth, with honor, integrity, actual substance. So, I find it's been amazing to watch the changes that have occurred, but then there's also a lot of toxicity and cancer within it as well. And I hope we can just sort of, realize, as we talked about earlier, this is a journey. This is not, the waking up process isn't a destination. We need to be open to continuously evolving and refining our views and perspectives and beliefs and philosophies and all the rest of it, regardless how hardcore we think it is wired into us right now, and how immovable it is. Because if we don't stay open, then what's going to happen? We're just going to get further divided, aren't we?
Well, we are. That's the problem, And like I said, we get too bogged down in details, and we've got to realise that it is a learning process, and stop all the infighting, stop all the accusations, and develop some sort of a common focus. That's the way to move forward. All the infighting does, it just does the elites work for them. It just does the systems work for them, And even with what I've done recently with the public, the way I did about Ken O'Keefe and stuff, people looking about this, the further fracturing of the movement and infighting and stuff. I didn't do it for any of that. I did it because I saw a lot of people about to be ripped off a lot of money. And I just couldn't stand by and do it. I saw the potential for the damage that could do to the independent media as well if the mainstream got hold of it. I thought I'd call it. And it wasn't to create any infighting. It wasn't to create any type of division. It was just to call out something for what I saw. I saw a lot of red flags, and I thought I needed to do what I did, so I did it. And I've moved on from it. It isn't about infighting at all. It's about just exposing the fact that we don't need leaders, that should prove to people we don't need leaders. You can lead yourself. The only leader you need is, like I said, a common focal point. That's what should lead you. The common need for freedom is what should lead you. But we can all do that ourselves. We don't need any movements. We don't need any figureheads to do that. We just need to know our own power and realise that what we're dealing with here is just people. It's all just people, same as us. No one has any more value than anybody else. So, if we stop and ask the right questions, we can make a difference, but we have to be prepared to do it. People are just too afraid to. They want someone else to fix it. They'll look at the world and say, well, that's really bad. Someone should fix that. But they won't ever believe that it's them that should fix it. But really, they should. You see a problem, it's an opportunity for you to heal that problem. Don't look to other people to do it. And don't think by calling things out, you're creating division and stuff as well. I mean, it's people that do little niggly, little picks. He said, I think this, I think this. This is the sort of stuff that undermines stuff. But if you see a problem and you call it out, that's not creating infighting. That's just identifying a problem and moving on from it. So it's a different thing, People have to stop all this niggly stuff and realize that it's not about being the big guru. It's not about being the last fad or getting the big following. It's about speaking your truth and working to establish freedom. And that's only going to come from respect. But hey, that doesn't mean you shouldn't show emotions and stuff as well. I mean, be happy with that. Be happy with who you are. We've all got flaws. We've all got things that make us human, and we should embrace that. Nobody's perfect at this game. The only thing you're perfect at is being you with whatever flaws you have. So that's okay. It's okay to live through that and to work through that. That's what you came here to do. But don't be afraid of showing your emotion. I mean, without emotion and without anger at this system, I certainly wouldn't do what I do. If I wasn't concerned for the future of my son, if I wasn't angry at the actions of these politicians, I wouldn't do what I do at all. I'd just be sitting in the jungle playing guitar or whatever and letting the world burn. So, your emotions are what make you want to stand up against this system and make you want to do the right thing. So don't be afraid of embracing them. Don't judge other people for showing theirs as well. But don't be so quick to think that everybody's your enemy, because we're all in this together and we're all trying to find the way forward. And now's the time we can do it,
Absolutely. It's another sort of passive psyop within the New Age movement is, just think positive. Don't feel your emotions. That's all bullshit. We're human. We should be enjoying our emotional spectrum. Obviously, we don't want to amplify some of the more destructive, self-harming ones, but they're still there to be utilised to engage passion and a sense of justice. So that's
look, that's a really dangerous thing for people to do too. Bottle up their emotions like that, Phil, because they say you shouldn't keep yourself high frequency, but they're not. A lot of these people, they're very toxic. They've got all this stuff bottled up inside, and then it explodes. I mean, I'll wear my emotions on, and I'll express them, and I'll lash out, absolutely lash with absolute anger if I feel that way. But then once I've done it, I'm good. I hold no grudges. It's okay. I've said it's done. If I offended, that's okay. You can offend me back. It's all good. I won't hold a grudge against you either. But if you've got a problem with me, you should tell me. But then don't hold a grudge and don't turn it into hate, and don't have this ongoing thing. I mean, put it down. Once you've said your piece, put it down. There's no reason to hold grudges about any of this sort of stuff. It's all a learning path. It's all a learning curve. But if you don't express your emotions, then you bottle it up and you become toxic inside. It develops in other ways, and you start finding that a lot of these really airy-fairy, love and light New Age people are very, very toxic inside. They have a lot of stuff that they're just simply not sharing with people. And if they were to express their emotions at the time when it happens and get it out, they wouldn't be building up these toxic blockages in their body. So, you have emotions for a reason. It's a way of clearing things. It's a way of purging energies from your body, but you've got to be open to expressing them and realize that you have them for a reason,
Yep, that's right on. Being a writer and, in this sort of, I guess, area, I've felt a lot of competition over the last 3 years. I've been writing about spirituality, personal development, and societal growth. I probably should have, if I just stuck to one sort of niche area, it would have been a bit different for me. But, as I evolved my view and perspective, I had to share that and write about it. But the competition, it's just crazy. Like, I don't want to compete with anybody. Give me a game of table tennis or pool or something like that, and I'll kick your ass. But when it comes to competing with your soul or your ego, fuck that. I don't want a part of it, because I just see this as a collective game. Let's do this together. It's a mission. We're on the same mission, and that's the same with the Ken and Zen situation. It is really unfortunate. I'm sure everybody has a lot of healing, self-healing to do around what happened with that. But where there is crisis, there is opportunity. Only about a week prior, I launched a Kickstarter campaign to get my first book out, because I saw some of the Kickstarter campaigns raise over 250, 500 grand for kids books and shit. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to invest good money in marketing, advertising, and publishing, all the rest of it. And then as soon as the thing happened with the World Citizen Initiative, I was like, shit, how's that for timing? I almost pulled the project because, I felt, I was it's not the right timing for this stuff. But in the end, I just let it up. It's failing. It's just going to fizzle out anyway. But I figured there's no point, sort of stopping genuine attempts to raise money for good reasons to this recent circumstance stopping those sort of things from occurring. So I left it up, and it's not going as well as what I was hoping, but it is what it is. It's not a learning curve for me. But where there is crisis, there is opportunity, and I was really keen to have this conversation with you, Max, because just watching it all unfold, I've been really quiet about it with my own media, public persona, because I just wanted to watch and see what happens and see what we could make out of it, what could be constructed out of it. I don't want to. I'm not here to take sides or create further division. I would just like to see everybody who is a part of this process and beyond to look at what's going on and realise what really is important, and how are we going to start making some really good headway. Because at the moment, there's a picture of I just put on my Facebook, and it was a snake eating a lizard, and a lizard bit on the snake's body, and so the snake couldn't swallow the lizard, and basically the snake had to end up spitting out the lizard because the lizard sort of locked down on the snake, and both survived, and they went on to live another day. And I thought it was a great metaphor for what's going on in the control system right now. We need to lock down, we need to have some solidarity, we need to focus on what's really important, and ensure that we are unified in that process. And then the light, as you said at the start, the light always lightens the dark. And this is part of the spiritual experience that we're going through right now. It is about emancipation. It is about freedom. It is about honour. It is about truth. It is about respect. And it is about creating a future for our children and our future generations that's going to be what we might actually really be able to call a civilized, sort of empowered society. So I really look forward to seeing how it unfolds from here. It's been absolutely great talking to you. But before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we've probably missed that we might want to elaborate on?
No, I think we've covered most of it today. I like what you said before about ego. That's a lot of the problem as well, is that people being in touch with their ego. People misconstrue the word ego for false ego, because there are two different things. There's real ego, which you need, which is part of your everyday being you, and then there's false ego, which manufactures a false threat. And that's the problem. And this is why there's so much infighting even in the truth movement, is because people are locked into their false ego and they see someone else having a different opinion as a threat. And this is a false threat. It's a false ego. And that's the problem, is the difference between ego and false ego. And that's something that the New Age movement has never defined. They've tried to get people out of their ego, which is basically stepping out of yourself and stepping out of your power. And if you don't know your ego, you have no power. So you've got to know what your ego is, but don't confuse ego with false ego. These are two different things. False ego is that I'm better than you, which really does see you as a threat to me. This is a false threat. False ego will manufacture a false threat. It will give you a false perspective of yourself, and you'll create a false persona. This has nothing to do with actual ego, which is what you need to be an empowered you, to be who you are and to know who you are and to stand in that warrior spirit of yourself. You need ego to do that. Without ego, you wouldn't be able to survive in the world. So people have got to put things in perspective and look at how they've been played with that world as well, with that word as well. But it's been a pleasure to come on and talk to you, Phil. Happy to come on and have a chat anytime. Try to do it again maybe when I'm back in Australia and I've got a better connection. We won't have to deal with all this Amazon bandwidth. You can't even complain. That's the problem, because I'm in the Amazon and it's amazing that I've even got the internet. So, but it is what it is,
Well, I've enjoyed the bird and insect sounds in the background, mate. My fiance and I were in Peru in mid 2014, I think it was. Went and hung in Iquitos with some shaman out in the bush. It was just amazing. So it was very meditative to sit here and listen to you with the sounds in the background. It was not distracting for me at all.
Cool.
So thanks once again, Max. Definitely let's do this again when you're back in Oz. I'd like to maybe do it in person. Got some good equipment there. We'll I guess elaborate on what we've discussed today. So I really look forward to that. And thanks again for joining me on the Conscious Society, mate.
My pleasure.
Cheers.